sale here in Portland. And this is our end of the year party.
Yeah!
Unfortunately, I have some bad news. Clyde could not make it tonight. So instead we have Father Time who will take his place.
Welcome, Father Time.
Yeah. Anyway, just want to let you know that we do have some Ground Zero goodies over here. And we also have a discount on Jonathan Fuller masks. So if you want to buy some masks really cheap, we have some of those, along with other Ground Zero merchandise like books and t-shirts. But anyway, at this time, I would like to introduce to you Father Time.
Yay!
Yay. There we go. How you guys doing tonight? Doing good, huh? It's really soggy out tonight. I can't believe it. Put on this this get-up and I get all wet. It's like, my gosh, you know, Father Time's all wet tonight. So please bear with me. If you know, Toot says I smell like kerosene now that I've got all wet. So I guess don't come near any open flame or I'll just explode. That's the finale. I just explode. There goes Mason the Wizard. He's awesome. I told him that if I dress up like Father Time, he had to dress up like a wizard.
It was too easy.
It was too easy, yeah. So I kind of look like Radagast. He looks like Gandalf the Grey. There's a reason why we're all kind of dressed up tonight. It's the end of the year, and you know it's time to, you know, put away the old year, get to the new year. And even though New Year's Eve is coming up in a couple days, the end of the year is interesting because as I said on the air the other night, or last night actually, I was talking about how it seems that our words are what are most being scrutinized right now. And the reason why is because we live in times of social credit. We live in times of being judged by what we say, being judged by how we react to certain things. Just today I was looking at the internet and there were a number of videos that showed people freaking out on each other because, you know, someone was wearing a t-shirt or someone was doing something and it was a microaggression that they saw and all this. I don't know what's wrong with the country right now. I don't know what's wrong with people who just can't let people be people and let them express themselves and let them be who they are. I think that if there's anything we're going to learn about 2018 is that we need to be able to live with one another and love one another. And it's hard because I think a lot of people, once again, have the philosophy of rage. They certainly want to be angry about something and they want to be against something. And we all know what people are against, we just don't know what people are for anymore. And I remember when I was discussing things last night, I had a call that didn't get on the air, but he was wondering how we could do this, and I basically will go back and say this again, is we need to grab for our collective histories, and we need to understand what do we all agree on from our collective histories, what do we believe in. It's all about time, it's all about past, present, and future. And many of us, you know, we are only alerted to the past when we see things that we thought we believed from the past that aren't necessarily true, or our collective recall has changed. Our collective recall has changed, and we certainly have, you know, a lot more to think about with things like the Mandela effect and other stuff. I'm going to bring this down just a bit. There we go. That way I can talk better. Talking through a beard is kind of difficult. It's like I got a pillow over my face. I'm not trying to kill myself. It's just a pillow over my face. Yeah. Still. Okay. But I really am concerned about that. I'm really concerned about a lot of things. One of the things that I'm going to bring up probably on New Year's Day when we do our show, I'm thinking about calling this show Quantumaro. And the reason why is because I've been hearing a lot lately, and I don't know if you guys know this, but before they shut down the government, well, I don't know if anybody knows what the last law that was passed was, but I'll tell you anyway because it wasn't reported on the mainstream news. You guys are going to be really blown away when I tell you what the last law that was passed before the government shut down. Anybody have any idea? Anybody have an idea what the last law was? What do you know?
Passed by who? That they would allow the GoFundMe.
The what?
That they would allow the GoFundMe for the wall.
Oh no, that wasn't it. I mean, yeah, the wall. That's a pretty good guess, though. No, it had nothing to do with immigration. It had nothing to do with the law, with the wall. It had everything to do though with quantum computing. And a lot of people don't know this, but this is what happened. There was something called the Quantum Initiative, and it was just passed into law. And what it is it's basically encouraging scientists to go into the dimensions. We now have a law that states that they are able to do this now. Now, why do you have to pass a law unless there's something brewing where we're going to be able to go into the dimensions next year? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that the last law that was passed was called the Quantum Initiative. And the Quantum Initiative gets me thinking that maybe next year we're going to hear a lot about opening up portals, opening up dimensions, opening up all kinds of new sciences that are actually going to tap into our consciousness, which I think is amazing. Because for the longest time, you know, everybody was saying, well, the consciousness and time travel and all this stuff is real, and no one believed it, but now it's going to be possible, and it just seems to me that with all the computers and with all the things that we have, we're going to be able to glance into the future, or maybe glance into the past. Now, we know that, and we have like the wizards walking around, but we know that in the medieval times, there were wizards that did this. There was like Edward Kelly and John Dee. They're my favorite wizards because they claim that through singing certain notes and tones, they were able to open up the gateway to heaven. They were able to talk to angels. They were able to send the signal from human form into the ether and bring down those who would do their work for them, and they would do work for them in the guise of angels. It's unheard of. It's unheard of. Jack Parsons, who was a Thelemite, worked with L. Ron Hubbard, and in 1947, they did something called the Babylon Working Ritual, and in that ritual they were able to open up a portal. Unheard of. It's unheard of. Now we have CERN, and CERN is one of the most powerful quark cannons we have on this planet. And what are they doing now? We can all wonder if they've opened up dimensions. There's no proof that they've opened up dimensions. Only we have a feeling that sometimes we're having an overlap in dimensions, overlap in time, and everything is simultaneous, past, present, and future. And this is the thing that's most amazing, is that if they can find themselves in a quantum leap so far out that they can see past, present, and future, you can see the simultaneous activities of several dimensions, not just the dimension you're in now. Now, I want you to ponder the idea that the last law that President Trump passed before we went into the shutdown was the Quantum Initiative. It was so important that that had to be passed before we shut down. Now, why is that? Why, I mean, and think about what happened just last, 2 nights ago. Think about what happened. We had this huge explosion in New York. It looked like something had ripped a hole in space-time. It was this huge explosion, this electromagnetic explosion. Now, they said it was a substation, excuse me, said it was Con Edison in a substation, but so many people say that they don't believe it. That they witnessed it and they don't believe what Con Edison told them. They don't know what it is. And in fact, the greatest number of people who called into the New York Police Department that night, you know what they said it was? UFOs. They said it was UFOs. They said that they saw the aliens landing. Some people called and said that they thought they were seeing the rapture. They thought that Jesus Christ was returning. That's what they were thinking. Now, think about that for a moment. Think about the mindset that we're in right now. That something like that happens in New York, something simple, maybe a substation exploding, and then bam, immediately people say the aliens have landed, or bam, they think the rapture's happening, or bam, they think the second coming. I was on Pastor Begley's show 2 or 3 days ago, and he talked to me about the whole rapture thing. He said that many of his people in his congregation thought it was the second coming. They thought it was the rapture. They were ready, and they thought they were going to be taken up. This is how close we are to that. I mean, think about it. I mean, if you think about, let's say for lack of a better term, the second coming on a quantum scale, and the dimensions open and the wormholes open and something comes through, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to say to it? What are we going to do? I mean, are we going to treat it like a god? Are we going to treat it like an alien? Geordie Rose, who was a quantum computer inventor, he invented the D-Wave computer. He also has a company called Kindred. Geordie Rose, when he was speaking, he spoke about Anthony Patch. Anybody know who Anthony Patch is by applause? Yeah. So while he was doing a TED Talk, he spoke with Anthony Patch, and he said, Anthony Patch has said that, you know, quantum computers and dimensional computers and quantum computing is going to open up dimensions, and he doesn't know what he's talking about, he said. And then, as he continued on through the speech, he said, but one thing that Anthony Patch has right is that we're going to be opening up dimensions, and we're going to be sending things through. And Jordy Rose said that the things we're going to be sending through, people will think are aliens. He says, but they're not aliens. He says they are the elders spoken of in times of H.P. Lovecraft. When H.P. Lovecraft wrote the story about the elder gods and Cthulhu and all these creatures that from our nightmares, he says they'll be coming through. How many people are familiar with a movie called The Mist? Yeah. Stephen King, when he wrote about The Mist, it was a project called Project Arrowhead. What Project Arrowhead was a quantum computing project where they were opening up a doorway which opened up the abyss, and that abyss brought forward these creatures. Now, I did some research today, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but did you know that Geneva and CERN, the quantum particle smasher, right? They broke ground for this facility back in 1953, I believe. So it's been in process now for as long as it has, and it was basically there to quantify or at least do inventory on nuclear payloads. So instead of doing, you know, nuclear testing, they could do the same tests at CERN and get away with it because they're not blowing up bombs, they're just smashing particles. But what is interesting is, guess where CERN is located? It's located in Geneva, and it's on the border there in Switzerland. What many people don't know is that it is the place where the ancient temple of Apollo existed. Does anybody know who Apollo is? Apollo is the destroyer god. He is Apollyon. If you look up in the book of Revelation, chapter 9, verse 11, it talks about Apollyon, or the destructive god. That CERN, that quark cannon, is sitting at the temple of Apollo. And on the campus of CERN, they have Vishnu, or they have Shiva, right? They have Shiva, the destroyer god, sitting there. And so you know what they're doing. They're destroying primordial matter, and they're making it into new matter. Now, I'm very curious about a number of things. One, I'm very curious about neutrinos that are coming out of Antarctica right now. The reason why I'm curious is because if you know something about the scale model of these neutrinos, the molecules and all the particles, and the particles from the sun and the particles from cosmic rays, those particles are supposed to hit the planet, and they come down onto the planet. They don't come shooting out of the planet, unless there's something that's leaving behind a signature, a nuclear signature, that's supposed to be leaving this behind. So what we have is we have an anomaly. What we have is something that goes against the classic model. We also have the southern tip of Africa right now is being ripped apart. It's being ripped apart by something called the South Atlantic Magnetic Anomaly. And what that is it is where the magnetic field is very thin, and it's creating all kinds of earthquakes and problems for that entire area. So somebody or something has opened up a place on the planet where they're not supposed to be opening things. And this is where I think that in 2019, this is where we find ourselves. We're going to find ourselves in a place where reality is not going to be as clean as we think. Reality is just going to be a word that we'll use in quotes. The only certainty is uncertainty, because you're not going to be able to believe what you're about to hear. I know that everything that I talked about in 2018, most everything I talked about in 2018, I'm sure a lot of people don't believe. A lot of people don't think that what I was talking about is truly happening, but it is truly happening. They have found something in space where they certainly had to change the nomenclature of everything that they thought they were talking about. When they start throwing out words like technosignatures, biosignatures, and artifacts, that means they have found a civilization. That means they have found the techno-signatures of a civilization that may be long dead, it may be alive, it may be long dead, it may be right near us. Ammulu was one of the biggest stories in 2018 after it was seen in 2017. Because they keep going back to it, because this thing was elongated, it was bright red. Okay, and all the things you've seen on the internet, all the pictures you see on the internet show it as like this rock that is dark and just elongated. Well, it was elongated, but it didn't look much like a rock. That's just what they want you to think it is. It really had scientists baffled because of the shape being unnatural and the fact that it was bright red, and the fact that it didn't act like a typical comet. They thought it was a comet, didn't look anything like it, didn't act like it, and then, lo and behold, once they came to the decision that it was a comet, it came to where the Jovian system began, Jupiter and Saturn, and then, boom, took off, like the Millennium Falcon, took off into space, and they had to track it, and they were looking at it and saying, why don't we get some sort of a signal from it? Well, I think they did get a signal from it. I think that that was one of the last things that happened before Stephen Hawking died, is I think that he changed his mind about finding information about aliens, or, as they say, these exobiological creatures that may be out there that are piloting these things. And they're saying there are more Oumuamua-like substances like it. Now, here's another thing that I don't think anybody knows. I'm going to say here, and you haven't heard it on my show yet, but I'm going to talk about it. I hope you're prepared for June of this next year. And the reason why I'm telling you, you better be prepared, is because Chicken Little will be right in June. The sky will be falling, and it will be falling a lot. And when it falls, there will be some surprises with it, and I think that scientists are very, very terrified of it. That is why they went to Bennu. They went to Bennu because they want to see what they can do to somehow steer asteroids, rocks, and what have you. And rumor has it that they've been trying to find ways to steer rocks away from the planet, but we are going to have one of the meteor showers ever in our history in June. And some are saying that there may be Tunguska-like rocks that are going to come out of the sky and explode over major cities. They don't want it to happen. They dread the idea of happening. They say it may be a rarity, but they said the same thing about Chelyabinsk when it happened, and that was in 2013. A lot of people remember Chelyabinsk, right? I was on the air when it happened. I was on the air. I had a producer named Brian, and he sends me a message. He says, Clyde, he says, there was a huge 7.8 earthquake in Siberia. And I said, where is it? He says, the Ural Mountains. So here I am looking at anything having to do with Russia and something happening in the Ural Mountains, and all of a sudden I get this alert. Something just exploded over the Ural Mountains. Something just exploded over Russia. Immediately we were told there was a meteor the size of a bus that exploded over that area. 1,000 people were injured in that explosion. Buildings were destroyed in that explosion. Our mainstream didn't talk much about it, and it was happening in various places across the world, but the only place they talked about was Chelyabinsk because it made a big explosion. But there were plenty of other rocks that were falling out of the sky in places like Puerto Rico, and I think there was another place, I can't remember exactly where it was, but things were going on there as well. So there's a reason why, when Oumuamua was sighted, that President Trump decided to enable Space Force. Space Force is now another branch of government officially. It was laughed at first because, but it was Oumuamua that actually inspired Donald Trump to do this. And I have a feeling that when you have the last law before the government shutdown that is passed, this initiative to start quantum computing, something most certainly is up. Something most certainly is about to change, and we're going to take a giant leap into future shock. And the reason why many people are going to be shocked by it is because, well, they don't have me or you or anyone else out there to tell them what's coming. And they have to know, because if they don't figure it out, they're going to be shocked. They're going to go, nobody told me, because the media is not going to tell you. The media is not going to tell you because they're obsessed with trying to get the president impeached. They're obsessed with Russian meddling. I don't care what you think of Donald Trump. I think the media is losing their minds. I think there's a derangement going on. Yeah, if you'd applaud that, I think they're losing their minds.
just a distraction
Right.
from what's really
It's a
going on.
distraction. And you know, that's the thing. I remember when 25 years ago, when I first started Ground Zero, I was once talking to a colleague, or actually he's always been like the guy who's looked out for me over the years. His name's Scott Mahalik. And Scott, he's one of the guys that when we first came up with Ground Zero, you know, he was willing to back me up, and he's the reason why it came back as big as it did, because he's amazing. And we had a discussion, and he said, I have a feeling that you're going to be the guy that's going to be on the radio when the aliens land. And he says, and I think it's amazing that you know, you're going to start this show. And we actually offered $10 million for proof of a UFO. We had an insurance policy that we took out. We actually offered $10 million for a UFO because we were so into trying to get the truth out. And we wanted, it was a publicity stunt, granted, but it was a publicity stunt where I always say, I could be kidding, but I'm very serious about what I kid about, right? So I was very serious about it. And so were the insurance companies. They were kind of worried about it. But he said, I have a feeling that you're going to be the guy that's going to talk about the aliens and they're going to land. And I'm getting the feeling that maybe I will be.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because every single time a major event happens, I'm usually on the air, and I have to throw out a show so I can talk about shit and stuff exploding in New York.
Yeah, yeah.
I did a whole show. The show was called The End of the Edge, was the name of the show. And I was going to talk about things that would basically indicate that the world was ending, okay? Because I just, by the way, on KXL.com, I have a new podcast you may want to check out called How the World Will End. And this is another brainchild of Scott Mahalik and Bruce Collins, who's my immediate boss. But I'm doing this podcast now where every week I will do a podcast about things that would cause the world to end. In the first hour that we put it up, we had 200 downloads. Okay? So we were getting about 200 downloads an hour for this thing. So it's really taking off. Some other good news, we are going to strike a deal with Pandora. Now, I don't know if any of you use Pandora, but we're going to have our own little talk show on Pandora. So Ground Zero will be heard on Pandora, along with several other talk shows. That's going to be great, too, because Pandora is a very popular place to listen to music. But now they're broadening into talk radio. So Ground Zero will have its own Pandora channel. And so you'll be able to hear Ground Zero on a Pandora channel. And it's going to be amazing because Pandora is very successful. And it was just great. I mean, we had been trying and we finally got a response. Now I have to get on Sirius XM and I'll be back to normal again. Because I was on Sirius XM when I first started. And then after Art Bell came back, they took us off. And then when Art Bell quit, they didn't put us back on again. So I've been struggling to get on Sirius, but Pandora is huge. And this new, how the world will end is also amazing. So these are some things that are happening that, we're broadening our scope. But, it's funny because with every bit of what I call self-fulfilling prophecy, meaning that, if we continue to draw ourselves to doomsday, we're certainly going to solidify our doomsday. We're going to fulfill our doomsday. But we need to take heart in the fact, and this is what Michael Crichton once said, I think it's amazing. He said, the earth has always been a violent place. Weather has always been violent. Volcanoes have always been violent. Earthquakes have always been violent. Hurricanes have always been violent. It's always violent. And the thing that's interesting is that when we see the violence and we see the doomsayers and we hear it all, what is the first thing they ask for is money. We can control the weather. We can change the weather if you just pay your tax, your carbon tax. Well, you see what happens when you raise the carbon taxes in France, right? Yeah. You see what happened in France when they raised the carbon tax.
Yellow belt.
Yeah, I mean, it caused riots. You know how much it cost to get those guys to riot? 25 cents. Seriously. A tax of 25 cents fueled the riots in France. So imagine if they did it here. And see, Donald Trump dodged the bullet. He said, no, he's not going to do this. But it doesn't mean he won't eventually. I mean, they'll try and change things so they'll be able to make it more of a, they'll make deals with them. And I'm sure the wall has something to do with this, and a few other things have something to do with this. They're going to be doing their wheeling and dealing and crazy stuff, but we have to say to ourselves, you know what? We're going to write it out. We're going to endure to the end. We're going to ride it out, and we have hope because we got each other. And if we have love in our hearts, and if we have some of the basic things that, you know, keep us all happy, basic things. Because, man, I'll tell you what, for the longest time I was on the air, I'd say, well, the Internet of Things is going to screw us up if the Internet of Things ever shuts down. I get people calling me, oh, it's not going to bother me at all, Clyde. I live out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm not on the Internet, and I don't, and they're telling me this, and so what happens? CenturyLink goes down. CenturyLink went down 2 nights ago. I'm getting calls saying, I can't get money out of my ATM, Clyde. How many people got the EAS tone on their phone at 11:30 at night the other night by applause? By applause. You know what that was? That was CenturyLink going down and 911 all over the country going down. The entire country was without 911. The entire country. I mean, first I saw Texas go out, then Alaska.
All of Washington.
All of Washington went out. And it was funny because there I was talking about this explosion. And I told the guys in the office, because they were, I mean, the other guys were the news guys, I go, you know what? I'm hearing that 911 is out all over the country now. And they go, oh, this can't be happening, Clyde. Come on, you're just, no. And then people calling me saying, I can't get internet, Clyde, and I'm in Montana. Clyde, I can't get my money out of my ATM. They're not going to give me my check. Not only is the government shut down, but my check will not clear because the bank uses CenturyLink as their internet source to get the monies and to deposit those monies. So, you get in the picture?
Yeah, not going to affect me. Oh, yes, it will.
Oh, yes, it will. It's going to affect you. And you know what? We all better start thinking about having something set aside for 2019. And I mean food, non-perishables, potable water. You know, I always say this, and I'll say it again. You know, one of the things, for the longest time, Ground Zero has never, ever sold prepper material. We had a company at one time that we were working with, but it was a local company, didn't last long. They were a local Portland Preparedness company, Portland Preparedness Center, didn't last long. So I thought, well, I don't want to be cliche, you know, because what is it? Every talk show that talks about this stuff gets cliche, and all of a sudden it's like, buy your gun. You know, buy a gun, buy the stuff, buy the food, buy this, buy that. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy, you know, peddling you guns and peddling you, you know, bunkers, you know, for the nuclear apocalypse. But a company called Patriots Supply looked me up and said, we want to work with you. And I said, I'm only going to work with you if you make it affordable for my listeners. And they said, well, we can do a deal. I said, okay. So on my Facebook page and on my groundzeromedia.org page, there is a link. You can go there and you get a 2-week supply of food for $75. 2-week supply of food for $75. In fact, it's so popular they're limiting to 3 packs because people are doing it.
You said you and Ron just got some.
Yeah, we did. We got, Ron and I got, it's an Army tin. Was it an Army? What was it, Ron?
Yeah.
Ron, tell them what we got.
Yeah, tell us what you got.
Yeah, I think it was like a, 2-month supply or something like that of some freeze-dried goods. And a lot of it's really good quality too, so check it out.
They put an Army,
MRE?
MRE.
Yeah, it's
an Army trunk.
It's like a little briefcase, but
It's like an Army trunk.
yep,
Yeah.
it can survive EMP attacks.
That's good.
Yeah, it's made of. It's like an Army trunk. It's durable. It's locked, and it's got food in it. And the food shelf life is 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And you got, you know, a lot of carbs, and you got also dehydrated meats and things that you can have. But you know what? If you've got something sitting in your house that can last 25, and it's also protected in a, I think it's also, it's ray shielded away from radiation too, isn't it, Ron? I think it is. I think it protects. It's also, if we have like a radiation.
That's a special package.
Yeah, that's a special package. It'll protect it from radiation as well.
Wow.
So yeah, I told them, I said, I don't want to deal with you guys unless you can give my listeners a good deal. When they said $75 for 2 weeks, I was sold. I was sold $75 for 2 weeks. So if you find yourself on the groundzeromedia.org site, or if you find yourself on the Facebook site, we've pinned it to the top of the Facebook site. And it's just my mug there with the Ground Zero logo, and it says click here to get your 2 week supply. There's actually, I think, a 6-month supply. I think it's 6 months or it's 3 months for $147. And that's good too.
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, you're not gonna be able to get groceries for that much.
Just one person for that
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah. I think the only thing you'll have to worry about is potable water, and that's up to you. I mean, if you want to get potable water, that's, you know, you have to save that yourself. Filter, yeah, get a filter or what have you. So, I mean, it's always good to have stuff like that because, I mean, in New York, you know, LaGuardia went down, Rikers Island went down. In fact, at Rikers, it was scary. The prisoners went nuts because they didn't know what was going on. They shut down LaGuardia. They thought terrorists were attacking. And then, of course, the aliens were landing, and rapture was happening. No one knew what to do with it. No one knew what to think. No one knew how to act to this. I was looking at that going, what the hell? I didn't know what it was at first. I thought, oh, it has to be a transformer going off. When they finally said it was, I'm going, I figured, but man, it looked like an alien invasion. It looked like a scene from Skyline. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that movie, but in Skyline, where the blue light arrives and it's the aliens, you look at the blue light and you just basically turn to ash. That's what I thought I was looking at. It was pretty creepy, pretty scary.
And who's say it's not?
Right, and who'd say it wasn't aliens? People are like showing UFOs now flying over the area, so I don't know.
Maybe they created the transformer.
What's that? Day of the Triffids. No, but maybe. Day of the Triffids was cool. The original was cool because of the beautiful lights. The guy got blinded by them. But, so just to let you know that if there is a way to prepare, and we have it on our website. I don't normally push this kind of stuff. Man, I'll tell you what, I think it's important that we have something.
It is very important.
Especially with everything that's going on. Especially, oh God. You know what the scariest news story I read at the end of the year, and I've talked about it on the air, and people say, you're fear-mongering. Well, if the fear's there, have it, but it's scaring me. Russia's new doomsday weapon. Have you guys heard of this?
Yes, from your show.
Oh my God. So, Vladimir Putin had this, he has his yearly speech. It's kind of like, you know, State of the Union for Russia. He gets up there and he says, oh, this, Russia's good, the State of the Union is great. And then he said, our biggest problem right now is the United States of America. He says, they have been saying that we were meddling in their elections, we've been doing this, we've been doing that. Our relationship with Donald Trump is going down the toilet, and they haven't even bothered to go and renew all of their treaties, from the INF treaty to the START program. So we think that it's time that we need to protect ourselves because they're not showing signs of coming to an agreement with regard to nuclear weapons. So what do? They announce they have something called Avantgarde. Avantgarde is a weapon that travels 27 times the speed of sound. 27 times the speed of sound.
20,250 miles an hour.
20,250 miles an hour. Okay? Thank you for that. 20,000. And the trajectory is not straight. They programmed it now so the trajectory will be zigzag, which means that it's going to be one hell of a weapon to track down and intercept. They have it ready for the silos by next week. They were saying they're going to move them into the silos next week. Now, we all heard of the dead hand, right? You know what the dead hand mechanism is? What Russia has called the dead hand mechanism? You can turn on the radio and you hear, there's this buzzer. It's a UB76 or something, I think that's what it is. It's UB76 on shortwave. That buzzer, rumored to be the dead hand buzzer. And what that dead hand buzzer is it is a buzzer that's detecting life in Russia. If that buzzer, if something happens to Russia and that beacon doesn't get answered to, it will fire off all of its weapons towards its enemies.
Nice.
Yeah. Like Lost, I guess, yeah. It'll fire off all the weapons. Now you can imagine having something this fast and this trajectory coming to the United States without a way for us to intercept it. We best be getting on the table with Russia, and we best be, you know, stop acting like we're acting towards them, because they were not in the beginning considered an enemy, they were considered an adversary. But I promise you, war in the Ukraine next year, it's inevitable. Why do you think we're pulling all these troops out? Because we're going to need the troops to fight Russia. The Cold War is back on. The space race is back on. But the space race is not the space out there. It's the space between your ears. It's the space in your home. It's the space in your car. They want control of all of it. They want your minds, and if they don't get your conscious mind, they'll go after your unconscious mind. And they're doing it through neurolinguistic programming and algorithmic type of manipulation.
And the cognitive bias.
Cognitive bias, and what they do is they just basically play with your cognitive biases, and the algorithms know what you like. How many people have got on the internet and realized that your computer is reading your mind by applause? Yeah. It is reading your mind. It's overhearing your conversations, and it knows exactly what you want the minute you get on the internet. And you know why? Because that is what it's supposed to do. And if you ever wonder why your internet gets to the point where, oh, I'm seeing a lot of things that I like rather than things I don't like, it's because it's thinking about what you like, and it's steering you towards the things that they think you will like. That's why I always talk to people about Q. You know what Q is? QAnon? I always get in arguments with people. QAnon was established and put together, and this is what I gathered, and people will argue with me, and I know, but go ahead. QAnon was established by special ops, men, women, who knows, and then what they did is with that special knowledge that they had, they programmed an algorithm to basically feed off of the users of whatever Q is to them.
Did it start out on Twitter?
Yeah. Well, actually on Reddit.
On Reddit?
Start out on Reddit. But see, that's the thing, is that it's feeding off of what is being put into it. So what started as, hey, we're revealing some secret information, is now turning into, we're giving you information and feeding what you already know, or what you already suspect. And people they can't grasp that. But see, that's the thing. People will pay a lot of money to hear what they already know. Right? That's why a lot of preachers make a lot of money. That's why Joel Osteen can charge $5,000 for a seat at one of his gatherings. Right? It's because people will gladly pay a ton of money to hear what they already know and what they already think they know. But they certainly won't like a guy who's going to tell them everything you know is wrong. They're not going to tell you that, you know, in the future, the biggest certainty is uncertainty. They're not going to tell you that in a quantum world, reality will be the word that you have to use in quotes. Because this goes beyond, you know, anything that we can say. And I'm sure that sometimes when I talk about stuff on the air, it goes over people's heads. And I go, what the hell is he talking about? I don't know what he's talking about, but it sure sounds like it's important. It sure sounds like it's cool. Well, it is cool. And even I, with the high school education I have, only go on what I've studied. And so I have to call upon people like Anthony Patch and Brian Greene, and who knows, maybe I can get Elon Musk in the future, or somebody else to come on the show, Michio Kaku, you know, DeGrasse Tyson. Wouldn't that be great? To talk with them, Neil deGrasse Tyson, about what is happening. Because this is big. We are about to take a leap, a huge leap into the future. And everything that we read about in science fiction books, we're not going to have the funny, you know, 80s jumpsuits. We're not going to be wearing Mylar, you know, and the music is not going to be bizarre because, you know, we got rap and it's not going to go away. But, you know, it is weird science. So we see weird science. It's going to be weird science. And it's going to be science that we thought that we knew about, we didn't know about. It's tapping into the consciousness. It's tapping into the intuitive nature of everything. Now tonight, I don't know, Sherri, are you still here?
I'm here.
Okay. Sherri Peng is here. Give her a big hand. Sherri Peng has her own radio podcast, and she is a psychic healer. Yay. So would you like to come up here and give a few of your thoughts about what you're seeing in the future and what you're intuitively feeling? Give Sherri Peng a big hand. She came out here all the way from Forest Grove. I've been on her show several times. Go ahead, Sherri.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Woo.
Hi, Sherri.
Wow, that's pretty loud.
Yeah.
I got a big voice. Anyway, I have a radio show called Paranormal Horizons, and I co-host with Jason Ophir. But also, I'm starting my new radio show. It's called Portals to Enlightenment: The Journey of Body, Mind, and Spirit. I'm a psychic medium, but I also am trained in Chinese medicine. I'm a medical Qigong practitioner. I'm in the 4th branch of Chinese medicine. I'm a medical intuitive, and instead of using the needles, I use my hands to feel what's going on, any imbalances in the organs, the blood, the bones, and the joints. So anyway, I don't know what's happening, but right now I really agree with Clyde that we really need to come together and really, this is what I feel when I do a reading, is I really feel that we need to step up to the plate, step in our power, and be able to come together as a whole and set your boundaries. And don't try to let people run over you. And it's not whether it's the government, it's people around you. And in our show, we talk about everything from the paranormal, just like Clyde. And the conspiracy is being able to be open and being able to think for yourself, not think about what we should think about, what we're trained at schools and government and things like that. It has its time and place, but I think we really need to step up and have our own ideas and think out of the box. I don't know what's happening next year, but I have no idea. To be honest with you, Clyde, I have no idea what's going to happen next year.
Okay.
That's just a prediction, who knows, but all we can do is do our best and love each other and make the world a better place. Woo! And set the ego aside. Just really come together.
And by the way, Sherri's are you setting up something here so you have books and stuff here tonight?
Oh, I'm going to be doing readings.
Oh, she's doing readings tonight. Yay. So
Yay.
if you want readings and stuff, she'll be over there. And of course, Janine's over there too, somewhere. Janine's here tonight. I'm so glad that she's here tonight. She's doing really well. Thank you for all the prayers and all the support you give her. And that's another thing too. I find myself more, because if you want to know who's highly intellectual and in tune, my wife Janine is probably the most highly in tune person in the world. And she gives me a lot of inspiration. And it's inspiration that sometimes when I do some of my best shows, they're given because she and I are having conversations, and I know that if I'm at a loss for things to talk about and think about, I always have to look at my phone, and there are stories that she's given me to feed me. So I know, and she feeds me something going, oh my God, okay, yeah, I know what to do with that. And so I do that. And, and that's what we have to do. We have to listen to our partners.
Your better half.
Yeah, our better halves, our partners, our families, our kids, because it's really important to listen. And I'm learning that because, I always feel like I have to, fill in the hole with dead air. It's always, if everything goes quiet, Clyde has to yap, 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 yap. But I have to kind of slow down a bit and listen. That's something that I'm going to be working on for 2019, is trying to listen more. And I think it's important to listen. I think it's important to have gatherings like this. Even if I'm not going to get up here and be funny, or sometimes I can get out of hand, I certainly want to be here to inform you. And I've given you some things tonight to think about that I haven't talked on my show yet. I haven't even brought them up on my show yet. And these are things that are of concern of mine. And I think, war in the Ukraine, I think, will be a concern of mine. War with Russia is a concern of mine this year. I think we'll be hearing a lot about more revolution in the United States in 2019. I think we need to be prepared for that. We need to be prepared for shelter in place. If that happens, I think a lot of cities will be seeing shelter in place type of events going on, whether it be bad weather, whether it be terrorist attacks, or whether it be police activity. Civil unrest, yeah. When Janine and I went and saw Bumblebee the other night, And yeah, it's a great film. You should go see it. But when we came out of the theater, standing there in the movie theater lobby were police officers. Apparently some guy had a gun in the parking lot, and he said he wanted to harm himself. So they took the precaution to keep everybody in the movie theater and held us there for about an hour or two because they didn't want anybody to get hurt. And believe me, I saw some of the best and the worst in people when they're told they can't leave a movie theater. You're not going to keep me in here. I'm going to, you know, and they're basically fighting the police and fighting security. And I'm thinking, you know, 1 hour of your life, 2 hours of your life to be safe, you know. I didn't understand why people were so angry. Maybe it's because they wanted to go shopping some more. I mean, Lord knows you need more stuff. Yeah. I mean, all the war stories from Black Friday, didn't you learn, right? It's like, well, people got shot and they were hiding in the trenches, and that's just Black Friday. And Boxing Day. But, yeah, so if anything tonight, the old year is about to come to a close. I can say this, I'm confident that with all of your support, and with all of your love and with your prayers, miracles are going to happen next year. With all the horrible crap going down, we're going to find miracles in each other. We're going to find that we can rely on each other. We can find that, you know, there's strength in numbers, but there's also strength in the individual. In every individual, and I don't know, a couple of my shows I've said this, every individual counts. And the reason why is because in quantum entanglement, the individual counts and the consciousness spreads. And when panpsychism is the word of the future, what they really want is they want control of the consciousness. They want control of the soul. And when our founding fathers said you shouldn't have any unlawful search and seizures, I really don't think they thought that in the future they'd want search and seizure of your brain, of your mind, of your consciousness, of your soul. We know that they want the DNA, but do you really want to be data mined by an algorithm? Do you really want to be data mined by a government? Do you really want to be data mined and have that information used against you? No, you don't. But believe me, we have DeepMind and we have other computers right now that are ready to do this for you. They're ready to take everything and do it for you, and you're thinking you're getting all kinds of great conveniences. But in reality, what price are you paying for those conveniences? When things that are natural and good, I mean, sure, I'm not saying I don't want you to be a Luddite. I love technology. I love innovations. I love virtual reality. I love all of it. Why? Because most of us remember when we first played Pong. Wow, look at the lines and the little dot. Wow, that's so cool. And then Pac-Man came along. Well, shit, Pac-Man.
Asteroids.
Asteroids. Mine was Tempest. That was vector graphics. I did Tempest when I was a kid. And also, remember the Missile Command, the little ball? You know what that became? That became your mouse. Anybody ever think of that? That little ball when you were playing Missile Command, that was your mouse. And that little button that you clicked with when you played Centipede, that was your mouse. And somebody decided, let's put the ball and the click together, and let's put it in a computer, and bam! We have a reason to not work anymore.
I never thought about that before.
Yeah. We have a reason to basically spend hours playing Fortnite. Yay. So, oh, and by the way, anybody hear this new thing called Bandersnatch? Oh, anybody hear of Bandersnatch? Anybody? Anybody? Yeah, if you have. I haven't done it yet. I'm trying to convince my stepson to do it with me. Yeah, it's Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Apparently it's interactive.
Yes, I started watching that when I was getting ready.
Oh, so you're doing the interactive thing?
I was doing the interacting thing.
It's like playing a video game, but it's a TV show. And people don't know how they do it. They don't.
Choose your own adventure.
It has 1,000 different outcomes. And people are like having different experiences with it. They're watching it like religiously now because they want to have the different outcomes. And so somebody said to me today, have you played Bandersnatch yet? And I go, no. It says, don't take the LSD. I go, what the hell's that about? It says, well, just don't take the LSD, trust me. Hey, wait a minute, am I in Woodstock? The brown acid, man, don't do the brown acid. So, I mean, there are a lot of cool things coming. I mean, Bandersnatch is just one cool thing. I'm sure there's many other cool things that are coming. But with those, we have to really, really, really be careful that we don't get sucked in and have our souls get sucked in with them. Now, I feel like I've talked a lot, and I think there's some questions maybe, or any questions you may have, and if so, we'd like to start the question and answer thing before we karaoke. So Ron, if you're around.
Testing.
Oh, there we go. Angelique will do it. So if you have any questions, raise your hand. Angelique will do the roving microphone. Let's go down there. There we go. My hairy face.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So you posted a link on Facebook about 2 days ago regarding generator adversarial networks that are able to basically make fake images.
Yes.
So in a world in which we have these fake images that will soon be as real as anything an actual camera can capture, how is it that we're going to be able to distinguish what is real and what is not?
You're not.
So how, when the quantum computers start manifesting UFOs or whatever else, are we going to know that that is actually a real...
We're not. See, I'm glad you're bringing this up. This is an amazing thing to bring up. I don't know if anybody's read the postmodernist books, Baudrillard. Baudrillard was the man whose book was referenced in The Matrix. It was called Simulation and Simulacrum, I think is the name of the book. Yeah, the book was in The Matrix. I read that book because I wanted to know because I love The Matrix, so I wanted to know what it was all about, and I read it, and it gave me the creeps. Because one of the things that Baudrillard had said is, he said, one of the most cynical things mankind could do is using simulation and simulated effects from quantum computers to create the second coming. Now from there you have Sergio, what is his name? The guy that did Bluebeam, Sergio Moniz, is that his name? The guy that did Bluebeam. Serge Monast. Monast, there we go, Monast, there we go.
He's dead now.
He's dead now, yeah. But Sergio Monast, for example, the whole idea of Project Bluebeam, I tell everybody all the time, they say, well, that was Project Bluebeam. There is no Project Bluebeam. There is no Project Bluebeam. But, the technology will exist where what Monast said could happen, what Baudrillard said could happen, and that is when the simulation is far more enticing than the reality, what is the brain going to accept? It's going to accept the simulation. And I thought of that one time. I remember when I saw Jurassic Park for the first time. Do you realize that if no one would have told you that those dinosaurs were fake, you probably would have thought you were watching a movie with real dinosaurs? If you hadn't been told they were CGI, you probably would have been watching, and your brain only registers of watching a film with real dinosaurs in it. And another thing that's interesting about what you were talking about the program that can create images. I remember when I went and saw Rogue One for the first time. Have you seen Rogue One, the movie? Yeah. Okay. When Cushing walked out as Grand Moff Tarkin, as General Tarkin, he's standing there looking at the Death Star, and I heard someone saying, he looks pretty good. Isn't he like 97 now? And I said, no, he's dead. And they're going, oh, really? And so here we are looking at a guy, he'd been dead for like 7 years, and there he is on the screen looking healthy as ever. Unless somebody pointed it out to you, you never would have known. Pretty soon, they're just not going to point it out to you anymore. I mean, in the movies, that's 2 hours of escapist entertainment where you're seeing things happen. You're seeing superheroes and mutants and everything. And how many people, and I haven't seen this yet, but I got to, because people say, oh, you got to see this. Into the Spideyverse. Anybody seen that yet?
No.
Guess how they create the different Spider-Men inside the Spideyverse? They use a Hadron Collider. They use a collider, a super collider, that basically creates a portal or creates different dimensions where all these different types of Spider-Men show up. What are they trying to tell you? What are they trying to show you? They're showing you that virtual reality is eventually going to be reality. And in virtual reality, you can do anything. It's like when Morpheus talked to Neo and he said, you can fly in the Matrix. Just gotta realize that this is all some illusion.
People have thought that for years that they could fly.
I mean, you know what pisses people off when I bring up the whole simulation theory? When I say that we could all be part of a simulation, oh, that's BS. But I believe in flat Earth. Okay. Okay. Seriously, I have people, when I talk about the simulation, the idea that maybe we're living in a simulation and that the future created the simulation, I get this, it's all BS, Clyde. Why don't you talk about flat Earth? Okay. Yeah, I understand there are plenty of flat Earth believers all around the globe right now. So, anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's an amazing thing you bring that up because, yes, you're not going to be able to tell the difference.
So, I mean, you have kind of mentioned earlier in your discussion, though, about how we should be able to come in.
Can we get a mic on him? I don't know.
Yeah, I was already to the next.
Thank you. Just because with this being videotaped, Bill Coons, give him a big hand for videotaping this. They need to hear what's going on. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So during your talk, you had mentioned that we should, for example, get a couple weeks worth of food, which I think is a good idea. But to some extent, the theme was that a lot of this is going to have to be resisted or in some way endured.
Yeah.
But your answer kind of implies to me that we need to just go with it and accept the fact that reality at its very seams is going to change.
Well, yeah, because you can't, look, you're not going to stop innovation and progress when no one wants to take it by the horns and say, we control it. That's the thing that's angering me. Unless we say, we can take it by the horns. It's like when my father taught me how to drive. And I said to him, I said, man, I mean, because for me, I thought, this is a pretty big deal. I'm driving a huge car. And I said to my dad, I said, this is a huge car. He says, yeah, he says, you're going to end up wanting to drive a semi one day. And I go, I can't drive, that's huge. He says, yes, you can, because you have to be in control of the machine. You can't let the machine control you. I said in 2016, and you can read my book about transhumanism, I said in 2016 that the biggest thing that we need to debate in politics right now is robots. Yeah, thank you, amen. We need to discuss how we are going to deal with robots. And everybody goes, oh no, we run them. No, we don't.
So we're going to be replaced.
We are going to be run by them.
Yeah.
And you know what? People are not going to care. And you know why I know they're not going to care? Because the first thing you see when you wake up in the morning is that screen at the end of your wrist. And the last thing you see before you go to bed is that screen at the end of your wrist. We look at those screens more so than we kiss our wives goodnight. Or our significant others goodnight. And our kids, they're on it more than we are. A 2-year-old can figure out how to run an iPod within 10 minutes. This is where we are in the world. And so, if no one's going to address these issues, and if we're going to still thinking like it's 1999, when 18, 19 years have passed now, we're screwed. And I said, why don't we talk about robots? Why don't we talk about floor wages? What's going to happen to an economy when cars are driving themselves and trucks are driving themselves and planes are flying themselves? And the reason why I think about it is because when I had my first cancer surgery, my doctor did his surgery, one of the doctors that was attending was at UC Berkeley. And you know what he was doing? He was using Da Vinci arms at UC Berkeley to work on my kidney. Every time I go to OHSU, I have some intern going, you're the guy. And I go, what? We were there in the theater watching them use the Da Vinci arms on your kidneys. So I had robots working on me before it was even fashionable to have robots working on you to get you to feel better. But now, it's common that a robot would do surgery for you if it's something major. And people go, I have trouble with that. Why would you have trouble with it? If they're accurate, they're programmed by humans. And see, that's the thing, is that it's the idea of the graduating into it. But the trouble is nobody is planning on walking through the uncanny valley. And we're already there. When they have brothels with robots in them, we're already crossing the uncanny valley. I mean, it's like having sex with a washing machine. Think about it. It's like having sex with an appliance. You see these things, they roll them out, and they look like corpses. But guys will say, sure, I want to have sex with a robot. You know? Okay, where's our humanity? Our humanity is going away because we cannot relate with one another. The connection, it's like when I talked about the opiate problem. I said there is no opiate problem, there's an overdose problem. Okay? They're going to be taking away pain pills from people who are really, you know, using them directly and correctly, when the problem is fentanyl and the problem is heroin. But yet they're punishing people who are taking their drugs like they're supposed to be taking them, because the media has not responsibly told us that the problem is not the pill, the problem is the overdose. The problem is people are not connecting. The problem is people don't know how to connect anymore. Something as simple as petting your cat, or looking into your child's eyes, or putting your arm around your wife, or putting your arm around your significant other. Things like that mean something. A kind word, a smile. We don't do that anymore. We don't feel we have to anymore. Yes, we do. In fact, it's vital now that these simple things be put into play, like saying please and thank you. I remember when I was a kid, the magic words are please and thank you. Well, now the magic actions are smiling, talking, expressing yourself, and not having the poverty level of words that they're imposing on us because they want us to have a scarcity of intelligence and information, because the computers and the machines are going to do it for us. We need to say something, and we need to take it now and work with it now, or otherwise we just sit back, relax, and let it take over. LOL, yeah, you're right. IMO. IMO. Okay, questions? Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
There was a movie back in 1982 called Videodrome.
Yes, I remember the movie.
Could you comment on that and how that would be pertinent with what's going on as to what you formerly talked about?
Well,
I mean, it seems there's a lot of similarities.
well, yeah, I mean,
They're
okay.
almost prophetic as far
Well,
as...
yeah, a lot of these things that we see, like Videodrome, The Matrix, Johnny Mnemonic, all these shows were precautionary tales, and even Black Mirror, give them a big hand. If you haven't watched Black Mirror, you're missing out. I'm serious. Black Mirror, if you get it on Netflix, it's a British TV show, but it's a Twilight Zone for our times. And one of the best shows is Nosedive. It talks about the social credit that they have in China, but it was precursing China. It was a precursor to China, what they're doing there, where people are getting stars. They're getting social credits. If you treat somebody badly, they'll dock you. And if you get down to a certain number, they won't give you anything. They won't even feed you. So it's basically another way to control you, that you have to be on your best behavior, otherwise you're going to get docked. You're going to get docked, you're not going to get to travel, you're not going to do anything, because they'll say, hey, you're a bastard. We don't want to work with you. You know, be nice to people and maybe we will. But imagine being under the eye of Big Brother, making sure that you don't do anything bad. I mean, your freedom of choice, nah. Free agency, nah. What's that?
That's only available on Netflix?
What's that?
That's only available on Netflix?
Yeah, I think so. Or you probably get on Hulu. Or, I mean, it's called Black Mirror. Look around for it. But it's really good. It's a really good show. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, when is the population, they used to call it explosion, going to be a public issue, as I believe it should be?
It already is, and it has been since 1974. And if you read the documents that Henry Kissinger's put together, a lot of what we hear about global warming and that is all about that. It's all about population control and population explosion. The thing is that zero population growth is something that a lot of people prefer, but when we have reproductive laws, this is where we're getting into what they've done in China, and we realize that they don't work. But yes, the population is exploding right now. But here's the deal, you know, they are working on ways to discourage procreation in a lot of ways. And they will most certainly encourage procreation that would be endogenesis, or outside the womb. And that'll be pretty much next, probably within the next 2 to 3 years. So you'll be going to a factory to have a baby. It's kind of like Brave New World, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, going back to the movie.
Go ahead, sorry.
Testing.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going back to the similarities in movies. There's a movie, The Last Fantastic Four, where they're going to the quantum realm. And I'm pretty sure the government can already do that because, you know, the lights in New York. I mean, they did that in that movie. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
Which movie is it?
It's the newest Fantastic Four.
Oh, really?
Where they built a machine, they can go back
Yeah.
to the quantum realm. They went there and they brought something back.
Right.
You think that's possible?
Philadelphia experiment. Think about that one. Philadelphia experiment. Read about that. That was Tesla material going on. And always remember who took Tesla's material, right? Donald Trump's uncle. Yeah, he had all that information. See, isn't it interesting that Donald Trump's uncle has all this information about Tesla and quantum mechanics, and what is the last thing that Trump does before he shuts down the government? Passes the quantum initiative. Plus ultra, baby, plus ultra. It's pretty amazing. I don't know, you know, take with it what you will, but that was the last thing he put into law, was that initiative.
He made sure it happened before it shut
Yeah,
down.
he made sure that would happen before the shutdown.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So the ZPG question made me think about, you know, Paul Ehrlich and the evolution of, you know, what we're doing with the population, and the suggestion that, you know, we need to eliminate maybe up to 90% of the population on the Earth to create a sustainable life for, you know, the haves.
Yeah, that's what you see on the Georgia Guidestones. Yeah, they, what, 500 million?
Yeah, there's so many different ways that can happen, but you think the 5G revolution is maybe one of the great ways to see that accelerate? And how do the people who are the ones that, you know, want to survive and are going to go wherever, how are they going to make it through all the things we're doing with GMOs, all the things that poison humanity?
I wouldn't doubt that there will be places in the future, if they can come up with the way to do it, where you can escape that. I got to thinking that, you know, most of the time, that we should be planning on jobs or ideas that haven't even been thought of yet. And one of them, I think, would be a retreat away from 5G smog and Wi-Fi smog. So if anybody has the wherewithal to create a playground or an escape area where people can go and enjoy nature without being bombarded with all this electromagnetic crap, then you're going to be a millionaire.
Or a bubble right here.
In Oregon?
No, a bubble that you could, you know,
Oh yeah, or a bubble, yeah. The bubble, the bubble, what do they call that thing? The bubble of solitude? The bubble of solitude. Yeah, you sell the bubble of solitude, and you can, it's got a Faraday cage in it, and it's got a number of things to keep you from, you know, getting sick from 5G exposure. But you can watch all the birds die around you and the whales beach themselves, but you're fine in your little bubble. That's right, that's right. Anyway. Anybody else? How are we doing for time? Are we over time?
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes, really? Wow. It's 8:15. Actually, we've got an hour and 15 minutes. We went at 7:05.
Yeah, we got 10 more minutes.
Oh, 10 more minutes. He wants me to talk some more. I don't know.
If anybody...
So any other questions? Really?
If not... then-
Okay, there we go.
Hi, Clyde.
Hi.
It's nice to meet you. I'm Karen.
Hi, Karen.
And I tell you what, on Thursday night, when the 9/11 services went down,
Yes.
it was the, oh, sorry, the, when it went on cell phone.
Yes.
Before, you were already talking about it, and the people around the United States were also talking to you about it.
Right.
And I was also talking to my daughter. We do have a business down the road here to let her know that there would not be any service.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
So, I'm on the phone texting her, and that's when the alarm hit.
Right.
So, I have more gray hairs now because I've been pretty much ready all my life, getting prepared for situations like this.
Right.
I even talk about, you know, preparedness on Facebook and family all my life.
Right.
And it's like, woo, you know, it just, it shivered my timbers. It was crazy.
I just think, and I agree, I think there should be a plan.
Oh yeah.
You should have a discussion with your family about what happens, especially here in Oregon, guys. And I'll tell you why. I work on the other side of the river, okay? Being on the other side of the river, I'm away from my family that's on the other side of the river. If anything happens, that trek across the river, if the power goes out, not going to happen. If there's some sort of a disaster and I can't get across the bridge, not going to happen. And it's happened before when I've been downtown, and I think Janine's gotten used to it. Downtown, riots break out, Janine calls, are you going to be in a hotel tonight? Yes, honey. Okay.
Right.
And that's the thing, is that you have to be ready for things like, am I going to stay in a hotel tonight because I can't get past the riots? Am I going to be stuck in the office tonight? If I am stuck in the office, are there things to eat? Yeah, we have a kiosk where we have all kinds of junk food. I'm sure that'd be great to live on for 2 or 3 days. But we have our 2-week supply or whatever in the office as well. But, you know, you got to be ready for these things. You got to be able to say, you know, we have to find a way to get together if we're going to be separated, and where we're going to meet if we're separated. We have to know where the food is. We have to know where potable water is. We have to know where all these things are in case of an emergency.
Correct.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
My daughter asked me this year what I wanted for Christmas. And she goes, please don't say socks again. I said, no, this time I'd like a bucket.
A bucket?
What are you going to do with the bucket? I said, I'm going to put all kinds of supplies in it for my vehicle.
Right.
And so I'm ready. If it's cold, I got 2 blankets in there, and it's filled.
Right, you can be snowed in.
Yeah, I'll be ready.
Yeah.
Everything. Thank you, Clyde.
You bet. There was a time where we had, when we were working with the other company, we had road survival kits that they had available. We had in the trunk of our car. I remember one time I had a headache, and we didn't have anything to take in the car. And in the back we had aspirin and water, little packets of water that were in, you know, little pouches. And we drank the water and took the aspirin. But there were also things like protein bars and chocolate and, you know, something. And it's funny because a lot of people, and this is something that happened to me when I lived in South America, you don't know what you miss until you can't have it anymore. I mean, when was the last time you had a root beer? I don't drink root beer all the time. You probably don't drink root beer all the time. But when I was in South America, I wrote home and said, can you send me a bottle of Hires root beer syrup? Because I want to make homemade root beer. They didn't drink root beer in Argentina because it tastes like medicine. But I didn't have root beer. Cracker Jacks. How many of you ate Cracker Jacks last week? You did? Really? You like them? I'm just saying. You had Cracker Jacks last week. I'm just saying. We don't normally eat Cracker Jacks. But when I was in South America, for some reason, I wanted Cracker Jacks. Snickers bars. They didn't have Snickers bars. I wanted a damn Snickers bar. But that's something I want all the time anyway. But there are a lot of things that, you know, another thing too, spices. A lot of people don't think to pack spices, but I'll tell you this. Salt, pepper, garlic, sriracha sauce, you better put that in your repertoire of stuff, because you know what? You can have all the rice and all the wheat and all the stuff in the world, but it's not going to taste like anything unless you can put some sriracha in it. The apocalypse is a hell of a lot better with sriracha sauce, trust me. Well, yeah, we should put that on a shirt. Don't forget the sriracha during the apocalypse. It makes the beans taste great. What? You have sriracha lips? Oh, that's funny.
One more question.
So roosters have lips, right? Sriracha lips? Okay. One more question. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, this is a little bit off topic and it's a little hard to articulate, but I've done a lot of study over the more recent years about that the planet and the people, some people and the planet or whatever, ascending into the 5th dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about when we were talking about the sort of dimension jumping thing and things coming through, coming down, but it, like we're in like 3rd, 4th density, heading for 5th or whatever. So I guess, I don't know, my mind was kind of tripping out on like, you know, us going up and something coming.
Right.
Some kind of, see where I'm going with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, people are thinking, well,
I mean, what are your thoughts on
is the ascension going to be physical? Because most of what we are experiencing is mental, psychological. And this is where I've always thought that, you know, this is why science is looking at consciousness. They're not looking at the material, they're looking at the consciousness. So, I mean, they can control the material. All they have to do is they have to, like, just basically put a little few jolts in you or put a chip in you, and you're pretty much their slave. But imagine the consciousness, imagine the mind, imagine how vast the mind is. So when you're talking about ascending, are we going to ascend in the physical? I don't know. Mentally? Yeah, it's a lot easier said than done. Or it's a lot easier said and done, because when we can take the mind on a mind trip with virtual reality where you cannot distinguish the reality from what you're in the middle of, yeah, there's some ascension going on there. There's some amazing trips that you're going to go on that don't need drugs.
So I guess if you hit like a 0 point idea, where you were talking about those other beings and whatever coming down, I guess, I don't know, I'm tripping out on the idea, are we actually going up or are they coming down? I've
always heard the thing that we need to rise to their occasion, but you know what? It's going to be equilibrium. I think that not only are we looking for the singularity, but I think we should also strive for equilibrium. We can't let the machines be better than us, and we can't be better than machines. We have to work in tandem with them, and we have to make them work with us. Asimov came up with the rules of robotics for a reason. And I think there should be rules on what we can and we cannot take into the other side or bring with us from the other side. They don't know what they're going to bring over. One day we'll wake up and say, what's this thing? Oh, it was brought over during an experiment one day with the D-Wave computers in Kindred. Or it was brought over one day because of CERN. Oh, great. Now we got this thing in the planet that doesn't belong here.
How might it tie in with time travel?
Yeah, well, it is time travel. It's time travel where we're bringing time to us. You're bringing the time to you. I mean, they say that's how interstellar travel is going to be. The thing's going to go up, and it's going to wait there. It's going to focus on a point in space, and then it's going to draw that space to it rather than going to it. It's going to draw it. It's going to bring it towards it.
Like a 0 point.
Yeah, like 0 point. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mental masturbation.
Okay, let's do one more question.
All right, man, I'm sorry to bring this back up because you already spoke about it, but I was in the restroom when you were talking about it, so I didn't hear exactly everything you were thinking about with the CenturyLink being down and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But my interpretation of this, being a network security analyst for 34 years, it's Verizon and CenturyLink share the same satellites. And so if it was anything based off of solar activity, it would be affecting Verizon as well. I think it's more of a centralized attack. If you look at the maps of the outage, it's in well-populated areas. I think it's more of a test on our network infrastructure security from outside sources. I can't say who, but you know.
Well, let's just say this. For one of the least reported stories in the media, because CenturyLink, I don't think, wanted to call any attention towards its downing, the downing of it, the FCC is now investigating it.
But now we also got to worry about if it was a coordinated attack on the infrastructure, what we have to worry about is what kind of data was actually received in the hack.
We also need to worry about where that data was flowing and through what country it was flowing. I don't know if you know this, but Google had an outage, I think it was like 3 weeks ago. All of your information was channeled through China, temporarily, and they had access to it all.
Well, but the thing is, though, that's a little bit different with the CenturyLink is because they actually use a different, they actually have federal server access, like in Virginia. And so if all that data, if that actual point of data or storage was ever hacked, then they have I mean, I think it was attacked to sit there and see our vulnerabilities in this country.
Sure. I mean, it was a gain of function exercise. I think about that, too. I think it was gain of function exercise, and I think we failed.
Dramatically.
Yeah. So that's another reason why to be prepared, because we failed that test, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we didn't get, you didn't get announced that 911 was out until 11:30. And how long was I talking about it before it went off on your telephone?
About 3 hours.
About 3 hours. I was talking about it for 3 hours. People were saying, no, it's not happening. You're just scaring people. You're just scaring people. All of a sudden I started getting tweets. My 911's out. Of course it was out, because I told you it was out, because CenturyLink and all the other satellites are out. You know, I guess it's just a matter of building that trust. you know? It's a matter of saying, you know, you listen to Clyle Lewis and Ground Zero because you know you're going to get the information before it becomes mainstream. We've taken pride, Ron and I have taken pride on that many times, where we've actually done a story, and 2-3 weeks go by and somebody writes and say, wow, I heard this on the news just yesterday. And you were talking about this months ago. Yeah. It's because we dig, and we spend hours trying to get that information out to you. We have meetings like this and parties and get-togethers like this so that you can be informed. It's just a way to get information together. The reason why I do this is because it brings people together and it gets them talking about these topics that are very important.
And that is why we love you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. And on that note, Happy New Year. It's coming. Be prepared for it. And let's say goodbye to the old year tonight. We're going to be singing our lights out tonight. Also, Sherri Peng, again, is here. If you want a reading or you want a healing or anything, just talk to Sherri. She'll set you up. She's really good. She's really good. Anyway, thank you.
And again, we have some Ground Zero merchandise. If you'd like to purchase, come on up and enjoy the rest of the evening. Whoa.
Falling apart, Clyde.
I know, I was falling apart too.
What you didn't